This is episode 14. Welcome, fellow anglers, to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I am Captain Ryan Van Fleet, your host here in the Florida Keys. Each week, I bring you fishing tips, interviews, gear reviews, and more to help you maximize your fishing trip, catch big fish, and overall have fun. I hope everyone is doing great out there. I know last week's episode about black grouper was a little long with a lot of technical. I hope you all, guys and girls, use my show notes after listening for technical info and gear I use. I am also going to be doing an Ask Captain Ryan episode on occasion, so definitely email me with any questions you may have. This episode will be short and sweet, just a little story about patience. In one of my previous podcasts, I mentioned that I thought catfishing was boring. Well, my number one fishing fan, my dad, kindly reminded me that way back when I was a pretty excited little kid to catch some catfish. Now, I guess I have a tendency to speak faster than my mind works sometimes. Heck, I don't even remember saying it, but I guess I did. I grew up fishing the Mississippi River with my dad and grandfather. Now, I never slept the night before a fishing trip, as I was just excited to go fishing. I had very little patience, and even when the fish were not biting, I wanted to move spots or change things up quickly. Now, I had my hand slapped a few times by my dad. He was always pretty patient with me till I got on his and my grandfather's nerves. I learned that sometimes when the fishing is slow, it's best to let the fish come to you and not to harass my dad or grandfather, who both had more experience than I did. I needed the trust that they would work to catch fish for me. So when I get an impatient client, my dad calls it payback for when he used to take me and I would complain about the fishing being slow. Now, we use stink bait for catfish. My grandfather made it, and it was lethal. Now, it took a while to chum the catfish in with the scent. Now, fishing for catfish with stink bait is similar to chumming for yellowtails and grouper, believe it or not. Now, sometimes the catfish showed up right away, and sometimes it took a while. When you're a kid, an hour feels like eternity. And at the end of the day, the boat was a freaking mess, and man, did it smell. I'm sure my grandfather's watching from above with a big smile when he sees the mess that I make after a yellowtail trip. Or he taught me well that getting down and dirty catches fish. Nothing is guaranteed. I learned patience was the key to catching big catfish. My dad and grandfather also taught me about waiting it out to the very end, as sometimes the fish eat early, and then sometimes they won't eat again till the evening. Sitting on the river, waiting for the fish to bite, knowing my grandfather and dad were not pulling the plug to go home till dark was etched in my mind. They both taught me to fill the gaps between catfish bites with fish like carp and perch. They're less desirable fish, but they still bent the rod and they were fun to catch. When my grandfather said it's almost time, I knew it was probably going to happen with a big catfish, but sometimes it never did. Hunting trips were the same on full moons. We got to the duck blind and never saw a duck all day, but I knew my dad would stick it out till dark, and I did not have to worry about him wanting to go home early, even if it was slow. We usually saw the ducks come back from the cornfields 30 minutes before dark on these full moon days, and then we got our shots at the ducks. Now, I was a pretty poor shot, so I actually missed quite a bit, but I still got my shots at one or two ducks because we stuck it out. Quitting on a slow day is not an option for me. Usually my clients call it usually they call it because they get tired and want to go home before I do. When I go fishing by myself, my wife will call, a dozen times, and she'll say, "Get your butt back home." Even when we lived in Minneapolis, I would fish the Mississippi River at night by myself. The phone calls would start coming as the sun started to set. Now, slow days do happen on my fishing charters, but only a handful of times throughout the year. But yes, they do happen. I give my clients the option to target different types of fish on these days if the one they want is not cooperating. And if they don't want to target that particular fish, I stay with what they want, but make no guarantees that fish is going to be caught. But I will work very hard to get them what they want. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. I keep in mind all those days in the aluminum duck boat, 95-degree heat, no T-top, no boat cushions, no fancy fishing attire, catching perch, carp, and bluegills and tossing them back, waiting for that catfish bite. Or sitting in that duck blind in 30-degree Fahrenheit weather with freezing rain, waiting for the ducks to come. Now, I learned to tune out all those conditions and stay focused as I wanted to come home successful. Life has changed, but I still like to get down and dirty when I fish. I don't like to quit, and I still get those end-of-the-day bites. Sometimes they stick, and sometimes they don't. My clients come back every year. My clients that come back every year, they tend to be like me. They have grit, and they love the grind, working hard to catch fish. They know it's not a show-and-tell fishing trip. We're going fishing. I show a lot of emotion on my charters, as I truly love fishing, and believe me, it's a deep love. I still don't sleep the night before a fishing trip. My patience has improved, though, over the years. Even with the new era of what I call the Amazon.com fisherman that ask me every 20 minutes on a slow day, why haven't we caught anything? Can we do something else? I still work hard to get him what he wants. So the real truth about fishing is that it requires a lot of patience. And if you're thinking I was some great duck hunter and we killed a lot of ducks, nope. In fact, my abilities at shooting ducks never improved. They, in fact, were damn right poor. But my dad and I gave it hell each time we went. Thank God I'm a fishing guide and not a duck hunting guide. But I would sure like another shot at those ducks someday. Now, thank you for listening. If you have any feedback, comments, questions, or suggestions, I would like to hear from you. You can find me on Facebook at Good Karma Fishing Charters, Instagram at Good Karma Sport Fishing _ FL_keys, or you can email me at goodkarmaryan@gmail.com. Please also share this podcast with a fellow angler and check out my website, goodkarmasportfishing.com, and sign up for the monthly newsletter. I aim to provide you with fishing tips and information so you can make the best out of your fishing. Most important, just remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good.